Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another video on how to pedal. And this is the video that you probably thought I was going to make first, not third. Today, we are finally going to talk about pedaling for texture, textural pedaling. If you've been following along with the other videos and implementing what we've talked about, then the technique to do this is actually not that difficult. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you haven't seen the other videos, the foundations of pedaling and how to pedal for certain expressions and for emphasis, then go check out the first two videos of this series. Links are down in the description. Hey, real quick, if you enjoy this sort of content and you find it helpful, then you might be interested in a guide to practicing that I've written to help you be more efficient and more effective when you practice. You can download it at the link down in the description below. So go ahead and check it out because it will help you implement a lot of the things that we are talking about in this video. And now let's get right back to it. Now, for the first time, we are no longer concerning ourselves necessarily with how we are shaping the melody, but rather how we are shaping the accompaniment. The technique to do this is exactly the same as when we were doing connecting pedaling. But this time, the note that you come down after is not a specific note, but rather when the chord changes in a piece. And so this is the specific chord change advice that you've probably heard on other channels or other people talk about, which is that every time there's a new chord, you just change your pedal and it'll sound clean. Again, to iterate and to demonstrate, I play the chord change. My foot comes down immediately after I play the notes. My hand comes up to continue playing the rest of the notes in that sort of section, and I hold the pedal throughout until the chord changes. Then when I play the first note of that new chord, my foot comes up, lifts off the pedal, and comes right back down immediately after. Again, the most basic form of doing this is just playing block chords going from chord to chord, but we could even practice this by breaking up the chord into like an Alberti bass for a few beats before we then change chords and then have to change pedal. As I'm demonstrating here, I'm breaking the G major chord into an Alberti bass, playing that for a few repetitions, and then changing to a C major chord, playing that for a few repetitions. My foot comes down right after the first G, comes up as I'm playing the first C, and it comes right back down after that. And then I can keep going back and forth. Pretty simple if you've mastered connecting pedaling. But the real question when we get to this is not so much how to do it, but when and why. This is where I think a lot of those other tutorials perhaps fall short, because instead of giving you the tools to decide how to interpretively pedal, they just say pedal each chord. And so for a brief demonstration, I can show you what it's like to play this piece, the Chopin waltz, dry, and what it's like to play it wet. Wet, in this instance, means thick with pedal. Dry means without pedal. You can also think of it as in terms of thickness and thinness. Both interpretations are valid. Both interpretations mean something. But when do you want to choose a specific style of pedaling over another? Or maybe you can even ask the question of when do you want to change the pedal more frequently or less frequently? Obviously, the answer for this is a lot of times very personal, but a lot of it comes down to time period, sometimes the feasibility with connecting your melody or other notes into harmony, how you're pedaling the melody, and how thick you want your harmony to sound. For factoring the time period into your interpretation, this mainly has to do with when the pedal was invented and how heavy the pedal was when it was first invented. So people will argue for a thinner pedal for earlier users of the pianoforte like Beethoven or Mozart or Haydn, while others will say that perhaps you can use a little bit more and get away with it. So typically you'll find the composers in the Baroque and the classical eras require less pedal, whereas composers in the Romantic era and beyond need more pedal. Of course, that's just a very general statement, and there are people who break those conventions, and there are pieces which conventionally break those conventions. So take that with a grain of salt, and really either do some research on the piece that you're playing, or make an interpretive decision for yourself and stick with it. And as for making it your choice, here are some tips on how to choose how to pedal. First, I would choose based off the accompaniment. Of course, the priority is to make sure that the melody sounds clear and the melody sounds clean. But assuming that you are voicing and phrasing the melody properly, which we'll talk about in other videos, you can actually get away with a surprising amount of pedaling. So decide on how thick or how thin you want your accompaniment to sound, and choose how often or how infrequent you're going to pedal based off of that. General rules of thumb are that fast, quiet sections tend to favor less pedal. A clear example of this is Chopin's Minute Waltz. Louder, forte, heavy sections, where you're putting a lot of arm weight and body weight into the keys, tend to favor more pedal. Here's an example of the forte section in Chopin's Ballade in G. Things with more articulation tend to do better with less pedal. This is true for both the accompaniment and in the melody. It makes sense if you think about it because the pedal kind of just glosses over and smears together a lot of the articulations that you're trying to play. Sections with more legato sometimes could use more pedal, but not always. Sometimes the connecting with just your fingers sounds better than if you smeared it together with more pedal. And finally, my last tip for the use of pedal as a textural component is to use the una corda pedal or the left pedal as a tool to create a more muffled tone. Again, it's not a crutch for playing pianissimo, but it is a tool to create a certain ambiance or a certain tone. Or if you really, really need that last little bit of quietness in your playing and your piano just can't give it to you. We haven't talked about the left pedal before, but I don't think it really needs all that much explanation. You just use it interpretively in places that need it, and the technique to use it with the left foot is exactly the same as the right foot. So as you can hopefully see, pedaling is an incredibly tasteful decision. It has a lot to do with the way that you interpret, and in fact, a lot of the comments that I get on my videos about how my interpretations are a little bit different than other people's playing is that I play a little bit drier than other people. So pedaling is incredibly unique to you in a lot of senses. And now that we're 3 videos in, you have most of the tools that you need to pedal most of the things that you come across in your piano journey. So have fun with it. Experiment with different ways of emphasizing certain notes, different ways of creating different textures, and playing even with whether or not you want something to sound clean or muddy. All this creative and expressive power is at your toe tips. It is all just waiting for you to play and experiment with it. Build off the foundation, build off the tone that you can generate first with just your hand, and then add the pedal for another layer of musicality and another layer of interpretation. If you have any questions about anything that I talked about in this video, feel free to comment down below. Or if you would like to discuss anything piano related with me or people in my community, be sure to check out my Discord. Link is down in the description. Subscribe to the channel for more instructional piano videos like this. Next time we will have our last video in this pedaling series, and we will be talking about advanced pedaling, and I'll see you next time. Peace.